Hi everyone, we've got great attendance today. Thank you for showing up. I'm sure we'll have a few more arrivals as we get going. Please just say hi in the chat. Just get started. It's going to be a to and fro kind of session. The best way to have a to and fro kind of session is I talk to you, you talk to me through the chat. If you've been to any of my webinars before, you'll be very familiar with that back and forth process, and you'll also be familiar with how well it can work even in a brief 30-minute webinar. So yes, please say hi as people are doing. Hi everyone. I won't say your names out loud. I can see names, but I won't say names out loud for the recording because the chat is kept separate from the recording, so I won't say names, but hi and welcome. What I will do is I'll read out a lot of your responses, and they will form part of the total session. Okay, I will now get going, and please get chatty. So acknowledgement of country. There's actually the most appropriate way to do an acknowledgement of country is actually to be quite genuine about it. And given that it's this time of year, it's Christmas. Obviously not Christmas for Aboriginal people, but it's midsummer, and midsummer always means something everywhere. And so we've got a bit of a midsummer celebration, and Christmas is really quite inappropriate for us Aussies, really, because it's not winter. It is midsummer. So connect with what it means to be midsummer where you are. This is the true acknowledgement of country. Connect with midsummer where you are. Connect with the forces of nature and what that means. What it means for me is that I'm mowing the lawns like every week, and as soon as I've mowed, I look back and the grass is growing behind me. The veggie patch is going crazy. Where I live, it's been extremely wet. In fact, most of New South Wales and the eastern part of Australia has been extremely wet, which means that everything is just growing like crazy. And it's not too hot yet. It's quite mild, low to mid 20s, high 20s weather for people around sort of that eastern seaboard, even up into Queensland. But we can expect that in the next few weeks we're going to be challenged with much higher temperatures. Things are going to start to dry out in different parts of the country. They'll get storms. More storms and more flooding. I might get more flooding here where I am, and that's my connection and our connection to the country. And then it's in that state of being present with the elements and with the land and with the animals and with the plants and with the wind and the rain and the sun. It's from that place that we actually acknowledge that traditional custodians have been sitting on this country that you're sitting on now for possibly 70,000, possibly more thousands of years than that, and they've been taking care of this country for that entire time. And it's really worth actually being thankful and giving gratitude to them and acknowledging them and that traditional custodianship, and extending our respects to their elders past, present and emerging, who have and continue and will continue to do their best to take care of this country. And if there's any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people here today, a most warm welcome to you. Feel free to comment on any of that if you like. I'm Nigel. I'm a psychological coach at Uprise. My formal training is in law, psychology, psychotherapy, counselling, business. Most of my work is supervision of counsellors and psychotherapists and psychologists, and provision of psychological type services under the guise of being a psychotherapist and counsellor. Speak to lots of people in lots of different organisations, lots of different walks of life all the time, and that's where I get a lot of my stories from. I'll share anecdotes with you as we go through today. Please post any questions you have in the chat. All right, so this is our warm-up, and it's easy. Warm-ups are always easy. You don't think too hard. Just name some positive emotions. Just any positive emotion you can think of, just name it. Happiness, calm, joy, love, smell, excitement, laughter, happiness, flow is a nice one. Touch feels good. Achievement, peace. Okay, great. Those kinds of joyous, happy, excited, what we tend to call positive emotions. I always put positive in my own little inverted commas, because it's what we make it. And this is again an obvious answer. How do you feel about positive emotions? Really easy answer. There's no tricks here. How do you feel about positive emotions? Excited. I feel positive about positive emotions. I feel good the magic word good. the word for almost everything that's good except for everything that's not, which of course is bad. I feel good about positive emotions. Yeah, grateful, joyous, energized. Yeah, positive emotions are great. Bring it on. All right, let's flip it. Let's name some negative emotions. What are the negative? Yeah, easy is it. Someone said calm and easy in response to how do you feel about positive emotions? Because positive emotions are easy peasy. Just have them and you get on with life and you have fun. You connect with people. It's great. Negative emotions: anxiety, despair, hollowness, frustration, dullness, sadness, anger. The first thing I noticed, there's far more words for negative emotions than there are for positive. Hate, locked out, sad, defeated, failure, mad, apathy, loneliness, embarrassment, detached. Are we allowed to say pissed off or F-U-C-K-ed off? Yep. Unmotivated, humiliation, misunderstood, unsupported. Yep. All negative emotions. All right, we are moving straight. There's more coming. Distracted, afraid, deserted. Oh yeah, keep going, keep digging, keep digging. I love it. Okay, next slide. Same question though. How do you feel about negative emotions? How do you feel about negative emotions? Depleted, distressed, negative, out of control, rather avoid them, challenged, sad, would rather avoid them. Yep, they're a part of life. Nice, intimidated. You don't need to be here in this webinar. Down, sad, disheartened, anxious, tired, non-productive, lost. Come on, you're bad. Where's the bad? I just want to hear bad. Beaten out, afraid. You feel pretty bad about your negative emotions. And this is our entree into this topic of control and acceptance, because we have feelings about our feelings. This is like, for some people, it's like, oh, what? We have feelings about our feelings. If I have good feelings, yeah, I call them good for starters, and I have good feelings about my good feelings. But if I have bad feelings, yeah, I have bad feelings about my feelings. Yeah, I don't like them. I hate them. I want them to go away. I want less of them. Yeah. So what we do is we try and control a lot. Have a think about how much you try and control, how much of your life is dedicated to controlling the extent to which you feel good feelings, positive feelings, and the reduction, the increase of positive and the reduction in negative. And some models of psychology actually work towards this. Positive psychology is the case in point. Really works towards, well, if you want to feel more positive feelings, let's do the science. How do we do that? If you want to feel less negative feelings, let's do the science. Let's figure out how people manage to do that. And it's a way of trying to control our emotional state. But unfortunately, often when we have particularly thoughts and emotions that we don't like, our attempts to control them result in denial. Yeah, we would rather pretend they weren't there. What the things that we do, we just try to remember my webinar. What have I got? Yeah, this is what we do. It's a denial. We avoid. We suppress. So we avoid. Void is like, here's a negative emotion. Woo! I'm just going to sidestep it. Keep it at bay. Suppress is, push that bad boy down because I don't like it. It's not my friend. It shouldn't be here. It doesn't belong in this situation. Go away. I don't want you here right now. We deny its existence. No, I'm fine. I'm happy. I'm having a great time. Yeah, no, you can walk all over me because you're my boss. And I just love it when my boss walks all over me. Yeah, it's fine. We deny. And we also get into opposition with ourselves. But the thing is that when we do this, we're doing it to ourselves. Yeah, we're avoiding ourselves. We're suppressing ourselves. We're imposing upon ourselves. We're denying the existence of ourselves. And what does that phrase go? On this path lies madness. Quite literally. Yeah, all of this stuff that we try and do to our feelings because of a judgment that we've made about them leads to all of the stuff that we talk about in terms of anxiety, stress, all the mental health stuff, depression. And even you can even take this insofar as going into mental illnesses like bipolar disorder, alcoholism, schizophrenia, things like that, where really this is just taken to the extreme. And we literally go, you know what, this whole aspect of myself that I've decided isn't acceptable in the world that I'm trying to engage with as an outside world, or isn't acceptable to another part of myself, I've just got to get into this massive internal battle with it. And it does two things. First of all, it consumes a huge amount of energy, internal energy, but it also creates that energy. Yeah. And our attempts to control our emotions and be in charge of them and say, you can be here because you're positive. You can't be here because you're negative. I like you because you're good. And when I'm happy and I'm smiling, then other people like me, and that's what I want. But when I feel sad and lonely, other people don't like me, and I don't want that. So I've got to squish down the sad and lonely and try and make more of the positive and happy. The other language you use around this is, the difference between authenticity and inauthenticity. But as we do that, this energy is created, and it's got to be somewhere. And the nature of what we do to ourselves is we don't allow an outlet. Yeah, because these forces are pushing away internally. We very often won't talk about it. We find it difficult to find language to communicate about it. Hence, people need people like me, counselors, psychotherapists, psychologists, to be able to go, this is what's going on inside me. It feels really confusing and I don't understand it, and it's really painful and I don't want to do it anymore, but I don't know what I'm doing. Often this is what you're doing. And it makes you tense. Yeah, it makes you tense. What is tension? It's stress, and it manifests as anxiety. Yeah, it starts, this energy that's turned in upon yourself starts to sort of, vibrate and come through your body. And initially, we kind of know what we're doing. Like at the beginning, it's like, oh, there's an emotion. I don't like it. Down, 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 down. Stay out. You're not going to help me get this girl. You're not going to help me have this relationship. You're not going to help me get this job. You're not going to help me get the next promotion. You got to stay down. I don't like you here. You're not welcome. I don't want you here. But then life goes on. Yeah. And we talk to people and we engage in things, and something else happens, and I get hungry and I need to go and do this and I need to go and do that. And oh my gosh, it's Christmas. And what do I got to do in this? And yet in the background, in the background, this is still going on. And now I'm just like, I don't know what, I'm just anxious all the time. I feel crappy. I feel like I've got like knots inside of me. And you created the knots, but then forgotten that you created the knots. And sometimes we start this from a really, really, really young age, like really young, like babies can go, oh, mummy doesn't love me when I cry, so I've got to learn not to cry in order to kind of get what I want from mummy. So I'm just going to take that bit of me that wants to cry, and I'm just going to push it down. And then that becomes who I am. And I tell myself, oh, that's just who I am. I've always been that way. But yeah, I'm always tense. I'm always stressed. I'm always keeping down that unwanted feelings. So moving in then to the things that we're trying to control. And I'm going to break it out here. Most have been talking about emotions because, we do psychology and most people talk about emotional stuff. But I'm happy to break out when we're talking about control and acceptance. The whole thing also goes out into the world, because not only do I try and control what's happening internally, that same internal battle then gets represented in the outside world, where other things that I'm experiencing in the world are also things that I classify as negative. Yeah, things that I classify as positive, I go, yeah, bring it on, I'll have more of that. Sugar, caffeine, alcohol, all the things that I go, oh, I like that, I'll take more of that. But then there's things that I don't like. They make me feel, there's this lovely language thing around disgust. They make me feel disgusted, like, ew, yuck. There's one called dismell, and you go, oh, geez, I don't like that. That's a bit whiffy. And it could be people, it could be politics. It's all sorts of things that we might want to control in the world. All right. So what are some things that you personally might need to begin to accept that you can't control, whether it be emotions, feelings, things happening in the world, people around you in the world? What are some of the things that you might need to accept that you can't control. Other people's poor behavior, other people's mistakes, how other people feel about me, other people's emotions, other people's work ethics, my colleagues' lack of work ethics, COVID, can't control. Yeah. Anyone else got more? What other things? Yeah, there's lots of things that we can't control. I feel like I need another slide between the previous slide and this slide. By the way, for next time. All right. And weather, managerial authority, loved ones' poor choices. Yes, yes. There's a lot of loved ones' poor choices at the moment. The inability to travel at the moment, can't control time. We often come across people going, well, hang on a second, this whole control thing, surely there's some things that we do need to control, and surely there's some things that we can control. So what do you feel strongly? Well, hang on, there's some things I need to control. What are they? If you go, it's really important to me that I do maintain control of some things, and these are things that I can control if I put my mind to it. What are they? So someone's put mistakes that I make. So in terms of what I can't control, it's mistakes that I've already made. But then we can look that into the future. Can I control my anger? Maybe can I control my anger? How I respond to situations. Well, we're back to how you respond to your emotion, because how your body responds to situations is with an emotional response. Can I control my responses? I'd like to be able to control I'd like to be able to control my behavior, my reactions. Someone's put work schedule. Yep, definitely giving that one a thumbs up. My attitude. Can I control my attitude? And actually existential philosophers would suggest that the one thing that man can control, human beings can control, is their attitude. That's one thing they can have choice over. That's super hard. My boundaries in my relationship with others, how I spend my time, how I process information. I've got some choice and control where I put my energy, the people I surround myself with, and who I give my time to. Boundaries is a big one for someone else too. My perception. Oh, can I control my perception? That one's really, really tough. And the questions, with all of these things is, okay, if you feel like you need to control and you can control these things, some of them you can, some of them you can't, then start thinking about how. Controlling my expectations. Yeah, that's a good. Expectations is a great contribution to perceptions and attitude, because expectations, even though it takes hard work, is something that we can control. All right. So what do we need to control? In the way that we live, we need to take control of things to do with health and safety, and this applies to work. And I'm talking in a work context as well as are many of you. But we also need to control health and safety at home. It's a big issue between me and my wife. I'm like your classic, sporty bloke, probably overprivileged, played a billion sports, absolutely loved it, loved swimming in the ocean, loved kayaking out to sea, love surfing, climbing mountains, and I'll just take my boys with me, my kids with me. My partner's like, whoa, back. She's like, I wouldn't do that. Why are you taking a 7, 8-year-old, 9-year-old boy to go and do these crazy things? And I'm like, because I feel safe. She's like, yeah, but I don't feel safe watching you go and do it. It's frightening for me. And at work, it's the same thing. We've learned that actually through mechanisms and procedures and policies in the workplace, we are to a greater and greater extent able to control what's safe and what's not safe. And I just saw on Facebook, someone's like, oh, look at the Garbos. Remember the days when they used to run around in their thongs and their singlets and a pair of shorts. And they just grab the bins and chuck them in the back, and they'd ride on the back, of the dump truck. That was the way things used to be. But things have changed a lot. That's not how we do things anymore. We're very concerned about health and safety, and we've discovered we are quite good at controlling it. You can control your own daily and weekly schedule. If I showed you my calendar, you go, oh my God, mine was bad, but it's absolutely chock-a-block, but it works. I can now use online tools to control my daily and weekly schedule so that I know where I'm going to be. I can put systems and processes into my business. You can put systems and processes into your business that actually control workflow and help things work more smoothly. It's in your control the extent to which you meet your work and other commitments. Every now and again, things get taken out of your control, but to a great extent, it's your level of organizational skills. It's the way that you plan. It's the way that you structure. It's the way that you communicate, and you can learn. One of the things that we as human beings are really excellent at is learning. Two things that I've struck off the bottom of the list here. I think originally this slide was like a movable slide, but we can't do it in the Demio platform. I think I would have had emotions and feelings. People like, yeah, I want to change my feelings. I want to change the way I respond. I want to be in control of how I feel. And the other thing is other people. Yeah, God, other people's bad behavior. But people have, you've done well and sort of going, maybe I can't control that. But I just strike those. I work with couples all the time, and I work with individuals. And when I work with individuals, a lot of the time they talk about their relationship, in particular their intimate relationship. Also, people spend a lot of time talking about either their mothers and fathers or their children. And I can say straight up front, in this world, there's on the top of the list of things that cannot be controlled is other people. Yeah, so it's like, well, hang on a second. Don't we do that as an organization? Doesn't the government do that? Yeah, it does. But how does it do it? Yeah, and what works? Because trying to control people, that always leads to resistance, revolution, pushing back. Anyone who's tried to sort of keep their teenager in check will understand exactly what that means, or even your 3-year-old in check is going to understand this massive pushback to any attempt to being controlled. So we need to be careful about how we do that and think about how we do that. And I'm going to come back to the feelings, but I'm also going to come back to how we are in relation to other people. And a lot of you have sort of touched on it when you've talked about expectations and boundaries. And I love a little tidbit for you. This is a great insight. Expectations and boundaries are the same thing. There's no difference between them. Yeah, the expectation is kind of the belief that we put forth to the world about how another person or how something in the world should be in the way that we expect it to be. And what that does is that belief then creates a boundary in the personal boundaries sense that we then become aware of. And it's like a fence line. And as soon as something comes across that expectation boundary, it triggers a very physiological response that then turns into an emotional response. So what do we do with those pesky feelings? What do we do with other people? And what do we do with any other thing that we want to control and can't control, like the weather? We practice acceptance. Someone's asked, is that more so an unhealthy boundary? No, expectations are boundaries no matter what. The question, the extent to which it's healthy or not is the extent to which it works for you. So healthy should always be defined, and positive and negative should always be defined in terms of what's working for you. The original psychologist behind cognitive behavioral therapy framed it all in terms of goals. Anything that's helping you move towards your personal goal, whatever that might be, we will frame as positive or adaptive. Anything that gets in the way of you moving towards your goal is maladaptive or negative. And so much of that occurs through boundaries. So if you're having the kinds of relationships that you want, then you've got healthy boundaries. If you're not having the kind of relationships you want, or you're having relationships that you realize later that you don't want, you didn't like, they didn't serve you, they weren't good for you, then that would define an unhealthy boundary. It's individually up to you to determine what the right expectations are for you to set in relationship, to set those boundaries. And then we get to that next bit, which is the response, to choose how you respond to those boundaries. So the first step in dealing with emotions that just come up out of the blue is, rather than trying to beat them down, is to accept them. Yeah, the best thing to do when someone's over there doing something that you think, oh my God, that is just the wrong thing to do and it needs to be stopped and I need to get involved with it, but actually it's not your role, it's not your responsibility, including whether it's sometimes your spouse or your child or your parent, is to practice acceptance. And let's go check the next slide. We've got just aware that we've got a module in the Uprise app that works on this. But a good way of practicing acceptance is to sort of be with whatever that sensation is in your body, whether it's an anxious sensation, whether it's an angry sensation. Someone talked about anger earlier. Unfortunately, one of the worst ways to control anxiety, anger, or depression is to actually try and control it. What actually works, and this is scientifically validated again and again and again, and again, positive psych has been really good with it, as has an approach called acceptance and commitment therapy, like an entire approach built on this model of control versus acceptance and commitment therapy. Done a lot of research, a lot of work to say, actually, if you just accept that emotion as it arises, is if you just accept that thing that's happening out there in the world. And another approach called dialectical behavior therapy. In psychology, they love their 3-letter acronyms, CBT, ACT, DBT. So DBT has this approach where you become aware of an experience or something that you've perceived. You take a deep breath in and have a go at doing this now. Think of something that's really bothering you, that you wish you could change, but actually has been really resistant to your efforts to change it. Take a deep breath in, hold that thing in front of you in your mind, and say to yourself, I radically accept your existence. I radically accept your presence. I radically accept that you are, this is what is. And breathe out. And as you breathe out, you let it go. So it doesn't work all the time, but it does work a lot of the time. And it's about making a conscious shift to say, I accept, I let go. And if you think about the physiology, breathing in is holding on, and breathing out is letting go. And so much actually of what happens in modern psychology is using breath to be able to become aware of and process. And so the recommendation is that you work on your expectations. I'm glad that came up. You make a choice about the overall attitude or stance that you want to take in relation to the world or in relation to a situation. You commit to that choice. You become clear about the expectations that means. So if you're setting an intention, if you're choosing an attitude, and then you set your expectations, and then you predetermine your response to your expectations. And when your body invariably takes over because you've got old expectations, old attitudes, old boundaries that haven't been worked through and processed and made conscious, and when that flares up an emotion that's unhelpful to you in the moment, rather than going, oh no, I don't want you here, practice going, I accept your presence. I accept your presence. And then the beautiful little key is I accept your presence and I don't need to respond to you. I don't need to react to you. Particularly that emotion, that uncomfortable emotion, I don't need to do anything. Because you know what? If I just wait, give it enough time, it will pass. The metaphor I love to use with clients is a metaphor of the ocean and waves. You try and control the waves, you try and build a wall, you try and build sand barriers, and the wave will just keep on crashing and crashing and crashing, and it kind of makes this big kind of storm. But actually, if you just remove the walls, remove the barriers, the wave will come. It will crash. You will feel that wave of anger or sadness or stress or anxiety or fear, isolation or aloneness. And if you just accept it, it will crash, it will dissipate, and then it will recede. And yeah, it might come back again, but you're not fighting it anymore. And it's the fight that you end up losing yourself in. And if you just let the waves come and crash, then it makes for a much easier, happier life. And as I said, there's a module in the Uprise app that you can use if you've got the Uprise app. And of course, you can always reach out for coaching with an Uprise coach. So I think it's something to leave you with. If you're engaged in a battle to control your emotions, then they are in control of you. But when you accept your emotions as they are, allow them to be, listen to them, then you are the one who's back in control. All right, it's 1 o'clock. I'll leave it there. Thank you all very much for being here. Merry Christmas to everyone. Takeaways: attempts to control emotions make things worse. Focus on what you know you can control. Acceptance of how you feel and what you cannot change puts you back in control. Thanks, everyone. Take care and all the best for the holidays.